Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Reviewing Comics with me, your host, Alexander Turbin. This week we'll be doing reviewing Warlocks, a 1988 comic from Aircel Comics. But before that, I'd like to show you some of my own artwork that if you guys deem appropriate for your reading pleasure. You can get these at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin. I produce a full-size, full-color 12-page comic book every month for my Patreons. And like I said, you can get that at patreon.com/Alexander Turbin. And it's only $2 a month for this full-size comic. And I've produced, this is issue 15, and the cover is by Matt G. And it is a character that was created by him, Soera, and the colors by Jake Quirk. And I have 15 issues of these, and plus on my website alexanderturbin.com I have a whole bunch of other stuff, including Mutandis and other artwork that I've done in the past. But let's get on to Warlocks, issue number 1. I don't remember if I got this when it first came out in 1988. I don't think I did. I think it was a few years later. I've always been very interested in the Warlock 5 series, and I really don't know if this has anything to do with that series. I've had a few issues of Warlock 5, but to be honest, when I start reading it, I get confused as hell. So I really don't know what's going on in the Warlock 5 universe, if this is together with it or combined with it, or if it's completely something different. I am going to be doing Warlock 5, reviewing Warlock 5, as soon as I get some more comics of that series. I have like 3 or 4 later issues, but I'd like to get like the first 5 before I delve into any kind of deep dive and review of the books. What I know of it, I think it's going to be something that I really enjoy. So this is by Barry Blair, and he's actually the publisher of Aircel, and he does the writing and the illustrations. But Jim Somerville does the inking, and Mike Carbonneau does the lettering and editing. And this has get some glare on it. So excuse me. Let's delve into this. So my only critique of this first page is that it has a little introduction, which is cool. It's in the jungle, and then you see a Jeep and these 2 characters, and she talks and then he talks, and really it's vice versa. But my eye automatically read this first. So if I had anything to add to this page, even though it's a nicely drawn page, and it says a lot about the story and what's going on. It also I wish the lettering was vice versa, because it gets a little confusing when you read the response to this, and you're supposed to read this and she responds with that, and it's just basically her saying that they have to walk into the jungle and they can't take the Jeep anymore, which is, it's nothing, but it's kind of something. So they go into the jungle, and they see a hut, and they're attacked by a villager, and they I guess it was a mistake, because the villager wants them to follow him. So they go into the jungle, and they go into the village, or they go into this hut, and they find this other villager who's taking care of this old skeletal looking guy, and he's very sickly and skeletal looking, and pretty scary. And so he goes on to tell them who he is, and they tell him that they're looking for their father. And at a temple, they say the last they saw, they knew that he was going to investigate a temple that was in the jungle. And he says that he did the exact same thing. And he was possessed by an evil demon. And but years later, 10 years later, I think, it took the witch doctors of the tribe all of their might to cast out the demon, and this is what's left behind, this sickly skeletal looking dude. And so then he pleads them not to go towards the temple, and that there's only evil there. And but they're looking for their father, so he's like, what about dad? And so he's like, okay, well, I know that you're going to go to the temple anyway, so I'll accompany you. And so they spend the night there at the hut of the old creepy dude. And it cuts to the villain of the story, which is their dad is being host to a demon. And you can see the dialogue of the father, and you can see the dialogue of the demon who has taken control of the father's body. And we don't know how that happened or anything like that. So then during the night, one of the villagers who's keeping guard, because I guess the old guy, since he's talked to Satan or whatever, he's become like a revered piece of part of the village or whatever. So these creatures attack the villager, and they attack the village, and the old man is like, I knew this was going to happen, so you got to defend yourself. So the girl shoots some of them. They're basically zombies, converted by their dad slash demon. And but the guy that was watching from outside, they put his head on a spike. So they've got no choice but to go to the temple. And here's more of the demon and their dad conversing and talking about what's going on in the world, and what happened. And because the dad is like, I'm going to cast you out, and stuff. And the demon's like, that's never going to happen. So they make their way to the temple, which is like an outcropping of rocks, and it's some sort of cave. And they make their way into the temple, and they're talking more about what happened to this guy, the older skeletal guy. And it was the magic consumed his life force, and he's not cool with that. I guess he's like on the brink of death or whatever. So they make their way through the temple, and it's creepy, and they can feel how evil and stuff it is. And they keep going through, and they eventually find a sack with their father's stuff and some blood. And then that's where the demon jumps out, and he's like, of course there's blood when I'm involved. Blah. So they're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And the demon continues to say that he's read their mind, and that he didn't realize that there was just a jungle with villagers out there in the world, but there's actually a whole world that he can go and take control of. And the kid says no, they're gonna free their father from his grasp. And the demon basically says that he has had a long time in the world now, and before he was fresh when he possessed the other guy, but now he's had a long time to be in the world, and it's not going to happen. So he pulls a lever, and they fall into the trap, or through the hole in the floor or whatever. And there's these weird maggoty creatures that are like biting them and stuff. But the villager luckily has some powder that makes them fall off. So you go over and you see the rickety old man is caught by these creatures, but he says no, leave him. He's already dead. He's been dead for a while. But he will keep them occupied so that they can escape. So they make their way back up, and they try to get out of this temple. And there's just a pool of water, and they think that it will lead to safety, freedom. So they dive under the water and come up into a grotto, and there's a spaceship. So the demon is really an alien. which I kind of thought anyway. And then next issue, the action moves to New York for a special kind of horror. So I guess this maybe is what the demon turns into, or he meets something else. I don't know. And then there's advertisements for China Sea and for Dragon Force, which is the Dale Keown book, and more stuff for that Aircel is producing that month. And Aircel is really, really a great publisher. They do some great work, and especially because Barry Blair does most of the illustrations, I guess, for their stuff. This, as for the artwork, I really like the illustrations. I really love Barry Blair. I really think that he looks a lot like Matt Wagner's early work, and that they kind of both started in the manga uh, influence. So they kind of started out with their work looking very similar, with kind of the bigger eyes and the loose looking figures. But his figures are fantastic, and his backgrounds are really good. The one thing I would say, I really don't love I love the inks of the characters and the figures and stuff, but this airbrushed um, gray tone is really does not do it for me. There is absolutely no texture to it, and I really just wish that there was, either not the gray tone everywhere or use it sparingly. Like you could have had these just a dark gray, and then this airbrush thing would have looked really good. Same thing with his shirt and his shorts and stuff and everything. It's just there's no texture in there at all, because it's just like a gray wash and or airbrush wash. And I just really wish that there had been some deviation and some differentiation. Is that a word? Differentiation. Some differences in the grays. Like this could have been really awesome. Like if you had a real strong light source and you had this as a real strong shadow and this is a real strong shadow, and like I said, a darker gray up here, it would have given it some really nice depth. But they really kind of missed the boat with that, because they were so enamored with this black and white airbrush gray tone thing. This is really nice, this panel, because it has some depth. And but then again, I just wish there was some contrast. Yeah, I guess that's the biggest word of the day for this airbrush artist, who is there just isn't enough contrast and there isn't enough texture. If both of those had been there, because the regular inks have some really nice textures, and like here you got the background here, and like the mesh of the hut or whatever in the background it's really nice, and the figures are beautiful. They've got some real life to them, but this gray tone wash just kind of makes everything blend together. And really, I would almost like for somebody to go through, reprint all of the Barry Blair's work that has this gray tone wash, and just take it out, and maybe even color it, but just take out this gray tone wash, and everything just would not look exactly the same. That being said, I really love his artwork, and it's really fluid and flows nicely. And his narrative art is perfect. There's never one time that I'm like, whoa, what's going on? I'm always know exactly what's going on, where everybody is, what everybody's doing. It just flows very beautifully. Even this extreme cut into what the bad guy is doing from when they're going to sleep. I know exactly what's going on. Like it says far away, but I didn't even need that. In this whole thing of the dialogue between the father and the demon talking, it's just perfectly done. I wish there was a little bit more detail here on the hut, but I can understand why he didn't do that. He wanted a nice contrast. But then again, like I said, if you didn't have this gray, or if you had just done it a little bit more, if you had just had a little bit more contrast, then I think that would have been, something really fantastic to have. I do love the brushwork, the inking brushwork. It really shows perfectly on her face, and this is a difficult um, pose right here underneath. I've got nothing bad to say about that for anybody because I know how fantastically, incredibly hard it is. It's probably the hardest um, pose to draw on a person is them looking up and their chin. Like even I would say get rid of these lines right here underneath the chin. I always say um, just leave that blank because you're gonna make it look funky if you have that. Um, but yeah, I mean the art is fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to checking out more Barry Blair's work. I've been doing some research for this. I kind of looked into his life and his career and stuff, and he had a fascinating um, outlook and look of his art and all of the stuff that he did, creating Aircel and stuff. So I'm going to look for more books by Barry Blair, which I plan on reviewing Elf Lord and all of the samurai and stuff like that he did. Anyway, um, the biggest thing I think I come away with on this book is that how well it's written. I really kind of figured that I was going to review this black and white pretty book because all of the Aircel books are pretty. But the writing is really good. Like everybody has their own voice. It's spectacularly done, written. Like I said, you go from panel to panel reading, and you're never really confused. Other than this first page where I wish the lettering was switched, but other than that, everything's really nice. There's no there's no boxes of or walls of text, describing what there is there because like he could have totally been like, and out of the shadows comes these two hulking beings overwhelming the protective villager or whatever. But you don't need to because the art already says what it is. You don't need all of that fancy exposition when you've got the art, telling the story. A combination of the art and the writing is perfect in the story when you let the other facet do what it's best at. Um, they say there's a saying, show don't tell, but sometimes you got to tell and sometimes you got to show, and the best comic does that exactly when it's appropriate, and when it's not appropriate it doesn't do that. It leans on its own um, like this is the art form. The comics art form is a combination of those two uh, art forms or properties or whatever. And to see this mixed together, and usually I would say more times than not, it's the writer artist that mixes those together the best. I mean, you obviously get great teams that work together, like Alan Moore with basically whoever he does anything with. But that's usually because his writing is so fantastic that even if it had poor artwork or art that wasn't for you, then it would still be a great read. Sandman um, is exactly like that. There's several times where there's Sandman issues where I just really didn't enjoy the artwork as much as I could have, but the writing of Neil Gaiman is so fantastic that it kind of covers over, glosses over the lack of the intensity of the artwork or the quality of the artwork or whatever. And but that doesn't have to happen here because it all blends together so seamlessly. Is there a couple of hokey parts? Of course there is, but it's kind of, I feel like it's almost supposed to be like that. I don't know when the time period is, but I would venture to guess it's like a 40s, judging by the, well, no, maybe not. The Jeep is kind of newish. Um, but it feels like a 40s noir pulp kind of thing. And also the story is very reminiscent of H.P. Lovecraft stories, which I love, and a lot of people, other people love. And But yeah, it's very H.P. Lovecraftish in the fact that it's got the jungles and the villagers and the demons and the temples and even the zombie looking creatures, and yeah, so it adds that whole other element to it. So there's a lot going on for this comic, and the fact that it's gray washed is a little disappointing because I know how fantastic it could have been, and especially if it was in color. If this was in color, it would be really fantastic. But yeah, I think this is a great book, and I love most of what Aircel and Barry Blair have done. And I'm gonna check out more issues of this if I can, and also I'm gonna check out Warlock 5 and some of the other Aircel books and do some reviewing of that. I would give this an 8. Yeah, I was gonna say 9 because it's so well written, but the grays really just kind of turned me off a little bit because it just all blends together. It's one giant blending thing, and some textures and some depth really would have gone a long way. So it's a good quality read, definitely, and I'm gonna definitely gonna pick more of these up. And the artwork is beautiful, disregarding that whole gray wash thing. So yep, I'm going to give it an 8. If you guys like this kind of content, please consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell. And also let me know what you guys think of Warlocks. Has anybody else read it? And is it actually tied to the Warlock 5 series? I'm going to find out anyway. And but let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I always appreciate that. And I will talk to you guys next time.